You can see the first slide just says CAS Physical Computing Community, aimed at helping you to find things you can do if you've found some Lego robot kit at the back of the cupboard somewhere. Hopefully lots of it, not two half kits of different sorts, but we'll see. My contact details are on there. I'll share them again at the end, so do feel free to contact me afterwards if you've got any questions or want to take any of this a bit further. It's a very quick tour through what's probably the most relevant kit of the last sort of 20 years that you're most likely to have found somewhere. There we go. This is me, Brian Egles. I'm not and have never been a teacher. My background is in industry, chemical engineering, logistics and IT. But since 2010, I've been self-employed, mostly running STEM days in schools. I have also worked a bit as a trainer, including for Lego Education and a couple of their distributors as a freelance trainer for them. The workshop I run most often is Lego or Vex Robotics activity days, but I also do some maths workshops, water rockets, structures. I've done Space Ambassador and Polar Explorer work for the National STEM Centre and things like that. So that's me. Getting on with the Lego Robotics then now. First of all, the current range. I mean, hopefully if you've found some of this in the cupboard, you might even be able to track down who bought it, because this stuff is relatively recent, sort of 2020 onwards. It's the Spike range. There's the Spike Prime, which is aimed at sort of age, I would say about year 5 and up, and Spike Essentials at sort of late Key Stage 1, early Key Stage 2. They both come with Windows software or apps for tablets, Chromebooks, iPads, things like that. So they're currently available. Training is currently available. New material is appearing all the time. And if you wanted to buy Lego Robotics today and you wanted to buy it new, this is what you pretty much have to buy. Everything else I'm going to talk about is old and no longer available. Okay, I've put a couple of links on here, taking you to the right point on the Lego websites where you can see what's there. You don't buy this stuff from Lego anymore. They sell through distributors now, but the Lego website has got buttons to say find me a distributor, and you can go and browse through them and compare prices and things like that. Like I say, the Spike Prime is for the older pupils. It's around about £400 a set. This is the main computer brain, the sort of yellow square brick there. It's got more ports on it than the smaller one you get with the Essentials. 3 motors of 2 different sizes. It's got touch sensors, light sensors, ultrasonic distance sensors. It's got a gyroscopic sensor built in, and sound and lights on the top and things like that. The Spike Essentials, much simpler. Only comes with a couple of buttons and a sort of light that you can make go on and off, but it does have a motion sensor and a gyro kind of tilt sensor built in too. So that's the current stuff. The purpose of this session primarily is about the older kit, but I will just mention what you can do with these. The Spike Prime comes with a block coding language, and you can use Python with it. The Spike Essentials only has block programming with it. It has an icon version where there's no words at all. It's just pictures of what the different blocks do. And it also has a word blocks version, which is very much like Scratch. So the word blocks are things like turn the motor on this way for 1 rotation, 2 rotations, things like that. Okay. Starting now on the older kits that you may find and are still there, you see quite a lot of these second-hand. So if you've got some of these but you haven't got a full class set, don't worry too much. You can supplement it if you look on eBay and on other sites. This was the EV3, Lego Mindstorms EV3, 2013-ish to 2022. There were 2 main kits with this. The one on the left here is the education version. Comes in a nice plastic tub with a sorting tray on the top. It also has a rechargeable battery, which is a very handy thing. So that's the education version. They also sold a sort of what I like to call the Toys R Us version, you know, the thing you'd find in a toy shop or you'd buy direct from Lego rather than from Lego Education. But the brain inside, this EV3 brain that you see on the right hand side, it's the same. So if you've got a mixture of these anywhere, you know, that they are completely compatible with each other. The brain that comes with it, the EV3 brain, is exactly the same. You can get the same software will run with either kit, so they're completely interchangeable there. This kit, you can have 4 outputs. These ports along the bottom are outputs, sorry, inputs, and 4 outputs along the top. So the outputs are primarily for the motors, 2 different sizes of motors, and the inputs for sensors. There's a distance sensor, touch sensor, sound sensor, light sensor, gyroscopic sensor, and things like that. The only real difference between these 2 kits is that the home kit doesn't have the gyro sensor in it, and the education kit, like I say, comes with a rechargeable battery. You can still get the software for Windows and for Macintosh, so that's still available, still downloadable. They're saying it's not supported anymore, but it's still there and likely to be there in the long term. And you'll find it in the retired products part of the Lego website. There are app versions for tablets and Chromebooks. They took those down from the app stores earlier this year, and there was a big outcry about it, because people said, yeah, what are we going to do now? We've just bought some new tablets and we can't download the software anymore. So Lego Education have extended the support for that till July 2026, but then those apps will go, and they've made no commitment as to where they will come from. So if you have got these and you think you're going to want to use them for some time, you know, eventually you'll have to use them on Windows or Macintosh rather than tablets. The software will still work, you just won't be able to download it anymore from the web store. All right. One of the nice things about this, it does have a reasonable on-brick programming option, so you can actually write simple programs by pressing these buttons that you see on the top of the brick. So you can get it to move forwards for a certain amount of time, turn left, turn right, put lights on, and things like that. So you don't always have to get the PCs or the tablets out to be able to program it. The other nice thing about this kit is it was reasonably compatible with its predecessor. It used the same connections here. The motors work on both bricks, and things like that. So that was a good feature for this one. The programming for the EV3, this is an example of a program that I've got here. This is using the Windows software. It's pretty intuitive. The move blocks, the nice thing about it is you can kind of read it. So if I look at this first block here, it's a move steering block. So it's got 2 motors and a steering wheel. That means that block is going to drive both wheels on a Mars rover type driving base. The arrow there says it's going to go straight. This is the speed it's going to go. This is how many rotations of the wheels it's going to do. So you can actually read these quite nicely, and the B and C is what ports the motors are plugged into. So this next block here then is a single motor block. It's being turned on for an amount of time. So 10% power for 1 second. You know, these are going backwards. These are going backwards and turning. This is going forwards and turning. So the software is quite intuitive. You can read it. You can look over the shoulder of a pupil and see what their program does. So it's quite good for helping them to debug. The tablet app is similar. So this is a tablet app program down the bottom here. This one's also got some flow control in it. So this one says wait for 1 second. You know, this says display something on the screen, and that kind of thing. So the software is nice, relatively intuitive. You can read it and look over the pupil's shoulders while you do it. There's great building instructions built into the software, so you don't have to download, you know, or use paper documents or things like that. The instructions are built in. The software itself has relatively limited curriculum content in the Windows software beyond some simple tutorials, you know, how to get it to drive, how to stop at a line, how to turn round, how to play a noise, that kind of thing. So there's relatively limited curriculum content in the software itself, but there's some quite good external stuff, including from Lego Education themselves. So I've put a link in here so you can download curriculum content from there, which is sort of projects and things that you can do. All right. So that's good places to look if you want curriculum content to go with this. And the software itself, if I just go back to the previous screen, that website there is where you go to get the software. This EV3 Lessons was written by a couple of teenagers. They were heavily involved in First Lego League. One of the things they did for their Lego League projects was to write educational materials to help other teams, which was very helpful to them because they got higher scores for being so helpful. So that it's been written by teenagers, but it really is excellent content. And I recommend taking a look in that. And they committed to it always being free. All you have to do is give them credit, you know, when you use their lesson content or their tutorials. Right? So there's enough there for you to get to and download if you want to easily put together, you know, a scheme of work or a series of projects for a STEM club or something like that. The other kit that was around at the similar time, Lego WeDo 2.0, 2016-ish to 2022. This is sort of age, I would say this is for age, roughly age sort of 6 to 10. So this is the WeDo 2 kit. This here is the brain. So this is the brain for this one. The programming here is very sort of simple block type programming. So this little program on the right hand side here says when I press the start button, turn the motor on in the anti-clockwise direction, wait for the motion sensor to see some movement, play a sound number 19, whatever that is, then turn the motor on in the other direction, only turn it on for 1 second, then go back round the loop. So it would then change direction again and then wait for it to detect movement again. So it's quite a nice kit. It uses Bluetooth, so you download your programs to the brick with Bluetooth. The EV3 I was talking about before, you've got a choice of Bluetooth, Wi-Fi or USB cable. I tend to prefer the cables just because you haven't got to do pairing, especially if you've got lots of kit in the same class. The main issue with this kit, there was no compatibility with the older WeDo, so it can't use the older motors or anything like that. So you can't, although the programming language looks very similar, they're completely incompatible with each other. Software for the Windows and the Mac, again, still available. Go to the retired products part of the education website. And again, the app versions for tablets and Chromebooks are still there and will be available till the end of July 2026. They will still work after that, but you won't be able to download them anymore. Friends of mine who are a bit of an expert on apps and how you download them have said for Android versions of these apps that there's a reasonable chance you would be able to download a package from somewhere else and do something called side loading. It's not something I'm familiar with or done myself, but that you'll probably be able to side load old versions of the Android app onto a tablet. But iPads, they don't know of a way of doing that. So once the app is no longer available, even if you got it on another iPad, nobody I know knows how to transfer it across. So if you're trying to use these with iPads, you know, end of 2026, you better hope your iPad continues to work, because the day you buy a new one, you'll be a bit stuck. The app for this has great curriculum content built into it. It's got projects, it's got science projects, and things like that. So it really is quite good out of the box. That was the big improvement on the previous version. So if you have got this, you know, I would suggest just using the curriculum content that's built into the software. As I said, it uses Bluetooth to communicate between the PC, the tablet or whatever, and the WeDo brain. It's some kind of low energy Bluetooth. Not all laptops have got that. I'm pretty sure the vast majority of tablets do. Some phones do, but not all. But if your laptop doesn't have it, you can buy a thing called a Bled 112 dongle, which makes your laptop do it. They're about 20-30 quid, something like that. So they're not horribly expensive. The other thing Lego did when they produced this one, Lego Education created some quite good videos on YouTube for how to get started with this kit. So particularly if you're going to have somebody using the kit, let's say in a STEM club, and the person running the STEM club isn't actually giving input, they're there for sort of crowd control, while the pupils kind of search and learn for themselves, then those YouTube videos are quite good. This takes a couple of AA batteries. They last a reasonable time, but not days and days. And you can get a rechargeable battery for this, but they're quite expensive. I mean, the kit itself was about 180 quid, I think. The rechargeable battery was nearly another 50, and the charger was nearly another 40 on top of that. So the rechargeable batteries for this were expensive. Another nice thing with this one is it should also work with Scratch extensions. If you go to the Scratch website with WeDo on the end there, you'll find software you can download that should allow you to use Scratch to program this kit as well. So you'll find Scratch blocks to turn motor on this way for 1 second, turn motor on the other way for 1 second, etc. The most frustrating thing with this kit is it comes with one motor, two sensors, so you can't drive around and steer it really, because it's only got one motor. You know, it's forwards, backwards, fast and slow. You know, that's it. So you can't do sort of mazes and navigation and things like that, which I find is one of the most popular activities for kids to do. Going back another generation, the Mindstorms NXT. So again, this is sort of year 5 and up. I would recommend this for. Came out in about 2006, which is roughly when I started working with Lego. Went on until about 2013. 3 different kits you might see. 9797 is the education version of the kit. Comes in a nice plastic box. You know, sorting tray, rechargeable battery, bit like the EV3, you know, much more practical for use in class. These 2 kits here, 8527 and 8547, more the Toys R Us, buy it from Lego, not Lego Education, get it from a toy shop, that kind of thing. But just like the EV3, the main brain in the middle is the same brain. The motors are the same. The sensors are all compatible with each other. So slightly different sensors across the different kits. But if you ended up with 6 different kits of different types here and just piled it into one big random pile of Lego, you know, it would all work compatibly across the kit. So that's not a problem. Right? Bit like the EV3, inputs, outputs, still got room for 4 inputs, sensors, typically sound, light sensor, light sensor, ultrasonic distance sensor, and touch sensors. And it's got 3 outputs across the top, generally used for motors. This only came with 1 standard size of motor. You can also drive lights with those with those outputs as well. And some of the kits come with converter cables that let you power simple Lego lights, and they've got coloured covers for doing traffic lights and things like that. Just like the EV3, the software is still available in this same retired products area. This kit never had software for tablets or Chromebooks or anything like that. You know, it went to end of life before they were becoming sort of mainstream, really. Another quite nice thing with this kit is it does work with the EV3 software. The light sensor is a little bit tricky. There isn't a block for the light sensor, but you can make it work. And if that's an issue for you, you know, let me know and I'll send you something that tells you how to do it. So in this world, you're dealing with computers and, you know, proper PCs and laptops and Macintosh only, no iPads, no tablets, nothing like that. And although it does have Bluetooth, it's tricky. The pairing it often forgets the pairing and things like that. So I strongly recommend using these with USB cables. The kits come with USB cables, so if you're using more than one in a room, it's far more straightforward just to plug it in to download, and then unplug and walk away with it. So I think this is the best robot kit Lego ever made. The batteries last, the rechargeable batteries last for ages. I mean, I use these in schools, and I'll run a 2 hour session in the morning, a 2 hour session in the afternoon, and it's after about 3 or 4 days of that the batteries need charging. They're fantastic, you know. And when you boot it, when you start it up, you press this little orange button in the middle to start it up. It just sort of goes do 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 do, plays a tune. That's it. It's ready to go. You know, so it boots up in like 2 seconds. The EV3 is more like starting a laptop. You know, it takes 30 seconds, a minute, something like that to get started. The software that came with the NXT, there were two versions of it: the education version and the home version. The programming itself is the same. The left-hand side of the screen you see here is a series of blocks clicked together to get your robot to move, to wait, and so on. So across the two kits, that is identical. You know, the software is the same. And within the software, you get the resources with build guides and things like that. With the education version, the build guide is for simple driving bases, for things that measure temperature, you know, good classroom lesson type stuff. The instructions that come with the home version are, you know, shooter bots and golf clubs and things like that. Much more of a toy type offer there. And the other big difference is the education version also comes with data logging, so you can plug a sensor into the kit. You know, you can get temperature sensors, light sensors, things like that, and you can say, I want to start a data logging process. I want you to take measurements on input port number 1 using the light sensor, and I want you to take 10 samples a second for 3 minutes and then display it as a graph on the screen. So the brick itself can do data logging. You know, if you've got one of these 8547, 8527 kits, it can do data logging, but the software that would have come with it on a CD couldn't, whereas the software that came on this kit could. And if you go to this website, you can download the latest version of the software anyway, and it will be able to data log. Okay. So was that background noise or a question? Okay, doesn't matter. All right. Another really good website for this NXT. I'll just go to it because it really is excellent. This nxtprograms.com. I'll just click on that and show you very briefly. So here's the nxtprograms.com website. You know, it's got information about all the different types of kit that you might find. You know, this isn't my website. You know, I don't actually know who's behind this, but it's really good. And you know, if you've got one of these kit, you can click here and you can find project instructions for things that you can do with that kit. These aren't the projects that came with the kit itself in the software. You know, these are things that the guy who maintains this website has built up over time. All right. So I've used a few of these myself. The main kit I use is this 9797 kit here, and in particular this Express bot. I think this is a superb thing to use with the NXT, and you could probably build something very similar with the EV3 as well. The really good thing about this one is if you pop those two wheels off, it fits inside the box. So if you've got a class set of these, you know, you can get the kids to build the Express bot. They can add other attachments and things like that. But at the end of the lesson, instead of having to dismantle the whole thing, all they've got to do is take those two wheels off, put it in the box, put the lid on. Next lesson, lid off, put the wheels on. 10 seconds later, you're ready to go. You know, and there's the building instructions to build that, and also for various attachments that you might want to use with it. So I strongly recommend that that website if you know for the EV3 or the NXT that we've got. Right, now hang on, I've managed to tell you what, I've managed to get back into the webinar and lost me. Where's my screenshot? There we go. Can you see the software again there? Somebody just say, hopefully we're back to sharing the slides again. Yeah, so that's the NXT. Sarah, I think you held up a Lego WeDo when we were waiting for people to arrive. So this is the Lego WeDo 9580 kit, 2009-ish to 2016. Really nice, simple, compact kit, doesn't take up much room. USB powered, so you have to plug it into the computer, so there's no batteries to manage or to go flat. You can still get the software for Windows and Mac from the retired products area again. Doesn't work with tablets or Chromebooks, unfortunately. It is supposed to work with Scratch, and I've certainly used it with Scratch. I'm told, and I've never been able to get it to work with the online version of Scratch. So I'm told it needs Scratch 1 or Scratch version 2 downloaded offline rather than used online on the web. And you do have to add an extension, and adding that extension has been a bit problematic since Adobe Air support ended about 2 years ago, because I think the Scratch add-on used that in some way. The laptops I've got on the software on do still work, but I wouldn't go out and buy yourself a load of these on eBay intending to use them with Scratch. I wouldn't like to guarantee that it will work. But if you've got some of these kits and you want to have a go with Scratch, there's a thing called More Blocks. When you look at the Scratch blocks up here, it's a bit small on this screen, but there's a section called More Blocks, and this add an extension button. If you click on those, you should be able to add an extension for Lego WeDo. The more blocks are then things like set motor power to this, turn the motor on this way, turn the motor on that way. So this little program on the right here, I'll read it to you because it's a bit blurry. It says, when I click the flag, set the motor power to 100, and then in a continuous loop, if the distance sensor is showing less than 20, and I think that's centimeters roughly, then set the motor direction to that way. Otherwise, set the motor direction to this way. Make sure the motor is on and go around the loop again. So as you put something in front of or move it away from the motion sensor on the WeDo, you should find the motor turns one direction or the other. Okay, just like the WeDo 2, this only has one motor. So although you can get the software to drive 2, because it's tethered to the computer with USB, you can't really do sort of Mars rover type driving your robots around stuff, which is a shame because I find that a really good activity. The WeDo software looks like this. So this is what a WeDo program looks like. When I press A on the keyboard, wait for the tilt sensor to be tilted up. It comes with 2 sensors, a tilt sensor and a motion sensor. Then turn the motor this way, play a sound, turn the motor the other way for an amount of time, go around the loop and wait again. Right. There's 12 models that come with the software, instructions for 12 models. The instructions are both the building instructions and the instructions on how to program, what the program needs to do. And the instructions typically look like you see in the top right hand corner here. Your kit has got to this point now. Here are the 2 parts you need for this step in the building, and then this shows you where they go on the model, and then you go to the next step, the next step, the next step. So it's all done on the computer, and because it's tethered, it's ideal for 2 pupils sat side by side with a laptop and the kit working at a normal desk, building one of these models. When I go into schools doing this, I find if you have a session for about an hour, you can teach them how to use it, and they can get, I normally start with this hungry alligator because it's a nice, simple, reliable model. They will all get that finished in an hour. The quicker ones will finish it in sort of half an hour, and they can then move on to other models in the series. Right? They're grouped in three. This first three here are about mechanisms. So it's dancing birds, a spinning top, and a drumming monkey that can drum different rhythms. These three here are kind of animal stories, alligators, lions, and large bird. There's then a football scenario here with three different models: a kicker, a goalie, and some football supporters. And then three adventure stories at the end here with an airplane, a giant, and a rowing boat. And with each one, you build it, the mechanism, it moves in a certain way. There are things you can do to adjust the mechanism, and then the program will take advantage of whichever sensor is attached at the time. So typically on the USB hub here, it's got two connectors, and you typically connect the motor and either the tilt or the motion sensor is pretty typical. If you go back further still, you might find Lego RCX, otherwise known as Robo Lab, sometimes called Robotics Invention System. This you're going back over 20 years now, pretty much, but you still find them in schools, that's for sure. The education version tended to come in these big green plastic crates again. The toy shop version and what you'd buy from Lego, not Lego Education, again in a big cardboard box, not ideal for storage. But as with the other kits, the brain is the same, the software is compatible, so it doesn't matter which version you got, you can get it to work. This is the main RCX brain that you see here that you get in these kits. It went through three versions: a version 1, a version 1.5, and a version 2. They're all compatible with each other. They all work together. It was version 1. You can tell it's a version 1 because it says 1 on it, and this little the black end here is a power supply. You could actually get a power supply to plug it in. Otherwise, it needs 6 AA batteries, and it really chews through the batteries. And the version 1.5 and version 2 took the power supply away, which was a real mistake. I think it was much better with. If you've got this, there really is not a huge amount, I think, you can sensibly do with it. Certainly not in a classroom. I mean, if you had a STEM club and you just had a couple of these and you want to try and get them working, then by all means. But there were some real limitations with this. It had 3 outputs for doing motors, lights, and there was a buzzer. It had 3 inputs, and it had a rotation sensor, a touch sensor, light sensor, and you could get temperature sensors for it. But the way you downloaded from the computer to the brick was with this black thing in the middle here called an infrared tower, and it talked by infrared between the tower and the brick. The tower, the original version, had a serial port, so use the serial port. So if you've got an old one of these with a serial port, good luck finding a computer that's still got a serial port on it, because they stopped putting those on probably 15 years ago. And the converters don't seem to work. I've never managed to get a USB to serial converter to work properly. I think it's something to do with the power. Later versions did have a USB version of that, so they will still work. But the big problem, this infrared download, the tower here just broadcasts infrared, and the brick picks it up. Any brick in the room will pick it up. So if one of your pupils downloads their program, it probably overwrites the program on all the other RCXs that are in use in the room. I used to do some work for Surrey Satro. We used to use these, and we had some cardboard boxes lined with aluminium foil, and you'd put the tower and the RCX brick inside the box to shield it so that it didn't broadcast the new program to other people's RCXs when it was doing it. All right. The other restriction with this one was the motors don't have a rotation sensor built in like the more modern kits do. So all you could control is what voltage I sent to the motor. In other words, how fast does it rotate and how long does it rotate for in seconds. And so, of course, if the batteries are getting a bit low, it doesn't go as far in 2 seconds as it did. So lots of restrictions with this one. The one good thing, it's very popular with adult Lego railway track type enthusiasts that you see at these brick shows, particularly the RCX one with the power supply. So if you do find some of these at school, my advice would be by all means have a go in a small STEM club, but you're wasting your time if you're trying to get them up and running for use, you know, in a class of 30 kids. You'd be better just selling them on Bricklink or something like that and putting the money towards something newer, even if the something newer, you know, is something like you know, one of these 97 kits that you might pick up on eBay for £100. You know, you'd be better doing that than battling on with this thing. That brings me on to Bricklink. Bricklink is a very good website. I've just clicked on it there for finding out what Lego is and what parts it should have, and getting spare parts and selling parts as well. So, for example, if I put 9797 in there, that's my Lego Education kit number. Here's the Education base set. You know, gives you a picture of what it's got. It tells you who's selling it and how much they're selling them for. The prices here don't include postage, so obviously if you're buying from Australia, you know, it'll obviously be expensive, but it shows you what's available. You can, with more options here, you can say only buy from people who will ship to the United Kingdom, or is in the United Kingdom, you know, and if you want at least 5 of them, you know, put a minimum quantity of 5 on there, and then when you search, it will find you who's got kits for sale that are based in the United Kingdom, or perhaps in Europe but ships to the UK. You know, you might find some cheaper ones that way, and so on. All right, so very good site for finding out what your kits are. There's price guide, so it's worth going to the price guide. That will show you how many have sold in the last 6 months, what's currently for sale, new or used, and it will give you some idea of what these things are worth. You know, the red block there means that's a price from somebody who doesn't ship to the UK. You know, because it knows that I said UK. The other useful thing with this, you know, item consists of 431 parts. You can click on it, and you know, you can then find out what the contents of your box should be if you've lost the contents cards and things like that. And if you need some spare parts, so let's say your kit's missing the ultrasonic sensor and you particularly want one, well, there's the part number for it, and you can find who's got those for sale and maybe get the spares that you need to finish off your kit. And you can also kind of browse through as well. So if you found some RCX stuff, or let's say you found an NXT kit of some sort, you're not quite sure what it is, you know, NXT, so this is the kind of catalogue of all things NXT, so you can see other kits that are available, you know, things you might want to use with it, and so on. So I thoroughly recommend Bricklink. I use it myself for buying spare parts. I also sell some of my spare Lego on there when I've you know, when I've put some extra kits together. So if you've got any RCX, my best recommendation probably is try and sell it on Bricklink. Bricklink, it's not a bidding thing. You list it for a price and people contact you if they want to buy it, and if they want a deal, they might say, can you do it cheaper if I buy 3, and things like that, and you just have a conversation with them. So it's more like a classified ads. There's 1 or 2 other older and not so old kits that you might find. These are very much consumer kits. They're not Lego Education, but you might find some old Spybotics. I found those very clunky to use and software only available on CD. Boost is a bit more recent. That was that you know, I found pupils would often go and buy those because they were quite a bit cheaper than the Mindstorms kits. There's a current Mindstorms Robot Inventor kit that's only just become obsolete that was being sold till recently, and there was an older one called Cybermaster. These are quite valuable if you come across one of these. They're well over £100 second hand. And I'll put a link on there from these guys called Brothers Brick, who like to do blog articles and things about the history of Lego kit, right back to when Lego made wooden ducks. I don't know if you knew that, but the first Lego product was a wooden duck on wheels. It wasn't plastic bricks at all. Last thing to mention, I would say first Lego League, definitely a fantastic thing to get your pupils or your STEM club or your scout group or home educator kids or whatever involved in. It's an annual competition. You have a regional round, then a national round, then a global, a world championship. Age 9 to 16, over 40% girls, so it's very good for the girls into computing agenda if you've got any of that going on. Each year there's a new theme, which means a new mat with new challenges on it. It's run by the IET, the Institution of Engineering and Technology in the UK. It starts, you get your kit in September, you practice, you get your robot built, you invent your attachments, you work out your strategy for scoring maximum points and things like that, and then you either go to a regional tournament in January or February, or you can just get it for use in school and have your own in school, one team versus another team, if you don't want to go and compete elsewhere. And obviously if you do that, then you're not tied to these regional dates in January, February. Teams are up to 10. You do get teams with only 3 people in it. And this is called the First Lego League Challenge. That's for age 9 to 16. There's also a thing called First Lego League Explore and First Lego League Discover, which are basically more for sort of Key Stage 2, Key Stage 1. So worth a look at those as well. But Discover, it typically isn't robotics. It might be some simple mechanics. Explore will typically use a WeDo kit or a Spike Essentials kit or something like that. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I mean, me personally, I use the NXT Mindstorms kit and the Lego WeDo kit 9580. I've felt no need to upgrade from them. I can get spares off eBay and things like that. I use these with First Lego League kits. The space theme is the most popular. If you have got an NXT kit, I've put here, I did during COVID when I couldn't go into schools, I put a car parking barrier system set of lessons together, freely available for anybody who wants to do it. So it's a car park barrier, and it's got a series of lessons which show you how to do it in the software. So step 1 just raises and lowers the car park barrier with a short pause. Step 2 adds a sensor so you don't crush a car under the barrier. Step 3 adds red and green traffic lights. Step 4 adds a button. So press a button to be allowed in, press a different button to be allowed out. By the time you get to there, of course, raising the barrier, checking there's nothing underneath it, putting the traffic lights red, green, lowering the barrier again, that's just as applicable when you're entering the car park as it is when you're exiting the car park. So step 5 kind of puts that together into like a subroutine. It's called a My Block in Lego. So it encapsulates that whole in and out process as being a thing called a My Block. Then I had accounting to count how many cars have gone in, count cars, so add the cars up as they go in, subtract them as they can't come out, and then put a limit on the size of the car park. So I put 5 parking spaces. So if a 6 car tries to go in, it won't let you in, And there's some videos on troubleshooting and some pictures of what the car parking barrier looks like. That's the ultrasonic sensor that detects if there's a car under the barrier as the motor's turning it. So by all means, you use, if you've got a kit that's suitable for using that with it, just use my lessons if you want to. I've got no problem with that. And lastly, shameless plug for me and my workshops. If you look at my website, you'll be able to see I do 2 workshops. The one with the space kits and the Mindstorms, where you typically set up in a hall, and this is the Drumming Monkey Lego WeDo kit, which is more ICT suite or sat at a regular desk. So that's it. That's me. Like I say, there's my contact details if you want to get in touch. I think we're going to do a bit sort of, have you got something you want to ask questions about now? So I'll go back onto the I'll stop sharing so we can go back to the meeting.